Tonight, when you get into bed, you will expect one thing: 8 unbroken hours. A single, smooth block of sleep from the moment you close your eyes until your alarm tears you awake. And when you don't get it, you call it a problem. But the real answer is far stranger. For almost all of human history, nobody slept the way you sleep. The solid 8-hour night you chase every evening is not ancient. It is not natural. It is barely 200 years old. Your ancestors would have found it bizarre. So what did they do instead? What actually happened in the darkness, in the long hours between sunset and sunrise, before electric light, before alarm clocks, before the word insomnia even meant what it means today? Let's go back. Picture a world with no switch on the wall. When the sun went down, it took the light with it. There was fire, yes. A candle, if you were wealthy. But mostly there was dark. Real dark. The kind you have almost never experienced. And that dark was long. In winter, in the middle latitudes where much of humanity lived, the night could stretch to 14 hours. 14 hours of blackness. Your body was not designed to be unconscious for all of it. So it wasn't. A historian named Roderick Kirch spent years buried in old documents. Court records, diaries, letters, prayer books, medical texts, novels. He was not even looking for this at first. But the same strange phrase kept surfacing again and again across centuries of writing. People referred to their first sleep, and then, separately, to their second sleep. 2 sleeps, not one. Kirch found more than 500 references to this pattern. It appeared in English, in French, in Italian, in Latin. It showed up in the works of writers you have heard of and in the diaries of people history forgot. And it described something almost no one alive today has ever done on purpose. Here is how the night actually worked. You went to bed a couple of hours after dark. You slept deeply for 3 or 4 hours. This was your first sleep. And then, somewhere in the dead middle of the night, you woke up. Not by accident. Not because something was wrong. You woke up because that is what the human body does when the night is long and the light is gone. And you stayed awake. For an hour. Sometimes 2. Now here is the part that changes everything. That waking hour was not wasted, and it was not feared. It was used. People rose and tended the fire. They got up and checked on their animals. They prayed, quietly, in the dark. Couples talked. Couples made love. Neighbors visited neighbors. Some people simply lay in bed in a calm, dreamy, half-awake state and thought. There were even manuals printed to guide what you should do in this window. Prayers written specifically for the moment between the 2 sleeps. Doctors advised that this was the best time for conception. An entire quiet culture existed in the middle of the night, and almost every trace of it has vanished from your world. Then, when the hour passed, you lay back down. And you slept again, your second sleep, until the light returned. 2 sleeps, with a bridge of wakefulness between them. This was normal. This was human. For thousands of years. So what happened? Where did it go? The answer is light. As artificial light spread through cities in the 1700s and 1800s, the night began to shrink. Streets that had been pitch black now glowed. Coffee houses stayed open. People went to bed later and later. The long, dark, 14-hour night was compressed into something shorter and brighter. And the gap in the middle, the waking hour, got squeezed out. By the time the electric bulb arrived, the 2 sleeps had merged into one. Within a few generations, humanity forgot it had ever slept any other way. The very memory of the first and second sleep disappeared so completely that when Kirch published his findings, most people had never heard of it. But here is where it gets personal, because your body might still remember. In the early 1990s, a sleep scientist named Thomas Ware ran an experiment at the National Institute of Mental Health. He wanted to know what would happen if he gave modern people back the ancient night. So he took a group of volunteers and did something simple. He put them in darkness for 14 hours every night. No lamps, no phones, no glow, just the long dark their ancestors would have known. At first, the volunteers slept in one long block, catching up on the exhaustion of modern life. But after a few weeks, something remarkable happened. Their sleep split in 2. They began to sleep for about 4 hours, then wake, then lie peacefully awake for 1 to 2 hours, then sleep again for another 4. Without being told, without knowing the history, their bodies simply fell back into the ancient pattern the moment the artificial light was removed. And during that waking window, were measured something in their blood. Their levels of a hormone called prolactin surged. Prolactin is linked to states of calm, of restfulness, of quiet contentment. The volunteers described the feeling not as anxiety, but as a kind of meditation. A still, peaceful, floating wakefulness. The exact opposite of how you feel at 3 in the morning today. Think about that. The pattern was not learned. It was buried inside them, waiting. Take away the light, and the ancient night comes back on its own. Which brings us to the thing you do almost every night without realizing what it is. You wake up at 3 in the morning. Your eyes open in the dark. And immediately, you panic. You think something is wrong with you. You reach for your phone. You calculate how many hours of sleep you have left. You lie there stiff with frustration, convinced you are broken. But what if you are not broken at all? What if that 3 a.m. waking is not a malfunction? What if it is a memory? A faint echo of the first sleep ending and the second sleep waiting to begin, arriving in a body that no longer knows what to do with it because the culture around it was erased. The panic is the modern part. The waking is the ancient part. You inherited the schedule. You just lost the instruction manual. Researchers who study sleep in societies without electricity have found more clues. Jerome Siegel, a scientist at UCLA, studied 3 groups of people who still live largely without artificial light. Hunter-gatherers and traditional farmers in Tanzania, in Namibia, in Bolivia. He wanted to see how humans sleep when the modern world is stripped away. What he found surprised many people. These groups did not sleep more than you. In some cases they slept less. But their sleep was steadier, and it tracked the temperature of the night, dipping in the coldest hours before dawn. And strikingly, in their languages, there was often no word for insomnia. The concept barely existed. Lying awake was not a disorder to them. It was just part of being a person in the dark. The problem, it seems, was never the waking. The problem is what you were taught to believe about the waking. Your ancestors did not lie awake at night hating themselves. They rose, they stirred the fire, they whispered, they prayed. They thought their slow midnight thoughts, and then they slept again. The darkness was not their enemy. It was simply half of the day. So the next time you find yourself awake in the deep middle of the night, try something your great-great-grandparents would have understood instantly. Don't reach for the phone. Don't count the hours. Don't declare yourself broken. Just lie there. Let your mind drift. Let the old calm find you. That hour is not stolen from your rest. In the oldest sense, it was never meant to be sleep at all. Because tonight, when you get into bed, you will expect one thing. 8 unbroken hours. But your body is carrying something far older than that expectation. And in the dark, if you let it, it still remembers a night that was never meant to be slept all the way through.